Hey, welcome back everyone. Fitness Business Podcast listeners, those watching on YouTube, welcome. Today I'm going to share with you how content ultimately turned my life around. And I'm going to break down a content posting strategy or system that'll just massively simplify how you think about producing content. But when I say content turned my life around, what I mean is 10 years ago, I was addicted to pills. I was jobless, actually just a few weeks from being homeless. And then around 7 years ago, I made my first Instagram post. Okay. And since then, producing content has helped me do so many things. For example, launch my online health and fitness business, which hit $1.5 million a year in revenue in just 14 months. We launched IFCA, Impact Fitness Coaching Academy, with my wife that has generated $30 million in 7 years. We bought our dream lake house and my dream boat, Malibu Wakesetter 23 LSV. This has allowed us to provide stability for my son and my wife. And another really cool thing it's allowed us to do is to retire both my wife's mom and my mom and give them both a $5K a month salary to, help around the business and the house and with the kids and all that stuff. But I remember when I first started producing content, just how daunting it was, right? I would stare at a blank screen for hours, or worse, I would spend like an hour to 2 hours on a single post that would get like 5 likes. And I was just kind of all over the place, right? But finally, after about 2 years of kind of trial and error and just kind of winging it, I bought the courses, I hired different mentors, and I really started to study what some of the top content creators and coaches were doing to leverage organic social media. And like, can I get a framework around it? Because I think there's freedom in a framework. So since then, I've tried a ton of different systems and nothing really seemed to make sense for me or specifically for health and fitness businesses. So that's why I kind of created my own. So what I'm going to share with you is the HPVC Framework, not to be confused with HPV, venereal disease. Is a system that, for me, it turns chaos into clarity. All right, this is what I would do if I went back to day one. I would just use this. So I'm going to share with you today, like what type of content to post, how often, and an actual 4-step process, the HPVC, which is like, how do you create the right hook, the right type of meat in the content, body, and how do you do the right CTAs? Like, what's that actually look like? So I'm going to break all that down and let's get started. I'm actually going to share my screen. So for those listening to the podcast, there will be a YouTube available for this. I don't know if it's out right now, but just keep a lookout. We'll be sending out emails and whatnot to make sure you get the YouTube so you can actually see the visuals. And if the YouTube is available, we'll link it right in the show notes so that way you can check that out as well. Okay, so let's jump in. The very first thing are, what styles of post do we need to make? So what we're seeing work the best today, this might change on Instagram specifically, but honestly, this applies to Facebook as well because it's the same company. It's all Meta, and the same thing applies. So this really is for Instagram and Facebook. But we're seeing Reels. Obviously, Reels are extremely popular. They're being pushed by the algorithm. You have to produce Reels, all right? There's no way around it. Carousels. Carousels are extremely useful ways to provide a lot of value and for people to easily consume content. They can just swipe, see bullet points, images, whatnot. And Instagram just released an update where you can post up to 30 carousels in a single post. So if you're a little long-winded like me, you can get away with providing more content and more value in a single post. And then we have stills, right? Just an image with caption. Those still have their place, but I would say the majority of your content should focus on Reels and carousels. All right, so let's keep rolling. And I'll share with you in a second, like how much, or like what volume of each to post. We'll talk about that. But anyways, this is what I call the social authority accelerator, which is essentially the 4 buckets of posts that you have to make. And if you're a podcast listener, you maybe have seen me talk about this before. So this might be a little bit of review, but we're going to quickly run through this because I really want to spend some time on the HPVC system. So basically I look at organic content in 4 buckets. Now this applies mainly if you are a coach, course creator, you sell a high ticket offer or service where people are buying your brand, like your brand being you, right? They're buying you just as much as you're offering your product as compared to like local based service companies, right? If I had an HVAC company, I'm not going to really post like this because it's very offer driven, right? Alternatively, like if you are a creator, a coach, or, especially a fitness or health coach, you've got to know how to create these types of content to get people to buy into you, not just your offer. Anyways, so we have community based content, which is kind of like viral, shareable. Then we have trust building. And then we have intimacy. And then in the middle of that is action. Action are getting people to actually take an action. So let's break each down quickly, all right? And if you're listening to this and you want to see these things more in depth, just scroll back a few episodes where I talk about these things a little bit more in depth. So with trust building content, super simple. These are things to build social expert authority in your niche, right? So this is like tips and how-to content. This is like myths and mistakes that your ideal client makes, or sharing case studies and social proof, right? That should make up a big pillar of your content. Next, we have intimacy. Intimacy are types of posts that really get your audience to know you, to become more intimate with you. These are sharing vulnerable stories. These are sharing personal transformation stories or conversation starters, which I'm going to talk to you today about how to actually tell great stories so that people can get to know you and get bought into you. So we'll talk about that more. But these are intimacy posts, right? Sharing who you are, what you believe in, random stories about your life, right? The next is community. Community is shareable. It's viral. It's the type of content that's going to build a like a rally of community followers around you. And it's also going to be the type of content that turns people away, that you get unfollows. Because remember, when trying to build a brand, you want to build a community of people who love you. But in order to build a community of people who love you, you also have to give those other people permission to hate you. So this is where polarizing or viral type content comes in. Sharing your beliefs and values, what you stand for and believe in, or your personality pillars, things that are important to you that you can talk about that will appeal to a more broad base. For example, for me, it's like I'm producing a lot of dad content right now, right? Just short reels, viral type reels that has nothing to do with business. It's just like me raising my son. And that's getting a lot of shares because it's super relatable to a broad niche. And then a percentage of those people end up being fitness professionals. So anyways, finally, we have action. So this is just where we get people now to take action for our offer. We're actually making offers, right? These are direct offers where you're calling out, hey, I'm looking for 5 avatar who want to get this result in time frame, blah, blah, blah. Or it's like indirect where you're giving value, but then you're making an offer at the end. All right. So again, rushing through that a little bit because I want to spend some time on these other things. So anyways, this is what it looks like. The Social Authority Accelerator. We have those buckets. Now, the question you're probably going to ask is how much of each of those posts do I make? Well, if you're kind of a beginner and you're just trying to get your social media built up, you don't have a lot of clients right now, I would focus on 5 feed posts a week minimum, 7 if you can, because if you can produce 7 a week, you're going to get better than if you do 5. But let's just, again, it's like fitness where obviously best case is to track every single macro all week. But hey, if we can just get 80% of our targets over the long term, that's more effective than being 100% then falling off in a few weeks, right? So give yourself some grace. So I would say 5 feed posts a week, and I would do 10, this is monthly, 10 trust posts a month. I would do 6 intimacy posts a month, and I would do 4 community posts, all right? That would come out to 20 posts a month. So when it comes to the types of content, right, I would do like 2 reels a week. I would do 2 carousels a week and at least 1 image a week. And then on your stories, be on there daily. Okay, so 2 to 3 conversation starters, 2 to 3 documenting a day in the life, like what you're doing during the regular day, and then 2 to 3 sharing your life outside of fitness, right? Okay, so the most common and universal posting framework. And guys, I hate to do this to you, but I really think this is going to be most useful. All right, so here's the HPVC framework. All right, so one of the most common frameworks that you've probably seen when it comes to creating content is just hook story offer. All right, real simple. And this comes from Russell Brunson, where he shares hook story offer, right? But it's a little confusing, especially for health and fitness professionals, because it's like, do I have to always tell a story? Do I have to always make an offer? This is where we created our own version that's HPVC. So it stands for hook, proof, value, CTA. All right, so hook, proof, value, CTA. Let's break each of these down. The hook, by far the most important component. All right, this is where if you don't get somebody to stop and give you a little bit of attention, doesn't matter how good your post is, right? They're not going to read it. They're not going to watch the video. And so some key techniques when it comes to creating really great hooks is either leading with the problem that your ideal client is facing, or if you're telling a story, you want to lead with the most compelling part of the story. So you would write the story, look at it and say, what's the most like attention grabbing or compelling, and then pull that hook to the front. Okay. Other key points, simplicity. You want to be at a 5th grade reading level. Avoid a lot of technical jargon. We're not writing college term papers here. All right. Next, you want to build curiosity. Tease the content that you're about to give. Don't give away the whole thing in the hook. A lot of people do that. It's like, well, why would they even keep watching it or reading it? And brevity, 6 words or less tend to work the best. All right. Shorter hooks. Now it's not always going to work out, but if you can try to be within 6, it's going to really help. Also, calling out your ideal client, especially if you're producing intimacy and trust-based content, it's very important to do so. With community, a little bit less, but here's a good example of that. If I'm going to call out my ICA. All right, so instead of saying why keto sucks, I would say why keto is destroying busy moms' metabolisms, right? Or instead of saying here's the worst fat loss advice I've ever received, I would say this is the worst fat loss advice for busy moms I've ever heard. So let's keep rolling. Hook examples. You could do a bold statement. Here's how to get this result in time frame without this objection. Or you could do negative hooks, which work really well right now. So that'd be like, stop doing blank. What are the mistakes that your ideal client are making? You could go ask a question like, hey, if you're a busy mom, did you know blank? Or are you aware blank? Or have you tried blank? And sharing a shocking statistic. I love this one. A good example could be like, hey moms, did you know that the #1 predictor of your child's future health is if they see you exercise, right? Then you go into why that's important. Other examples, like I'm gonna give you some more hook examples because the hook's very important, that are based on the type of content that we're creating, right? If you're creating an intimacy post, you might say, I cried when I saw the mirror. Or if you're doing trust-based content, this would be like 3 mistakes you should avoid if you're trying to get tone this summer. Other example for community would be like, man, people who think blank are just dead wrong. Or people who are voting for Kamala this election are insane, right? I'm just saying that. Actually, I do kind of believe that. But either way, like you're going to state your opinion and state a potential polarizing. Another thing, why controversial thing, like why I sleep train my children, right? Telling you what, parents get really, really intense over that one. All right, so step 2, proof. This is where you want to establish a little bit of credibility and quickly explain to your audience like why they should listen to you. Now, you don't have to do this in every single post. In fact, you shouldn't. But every now and then, you know, it's good to just insert some like bragging, a little bit of bragging rights. So that way they're like, oh, I guess this person knows what they're talking about. So you want to just mention your results, right? Or either results you've got for yourself or others, maybe your experience, qualifications. Be quick, real quick, 5 seconds or less, or like a few words or less. Again, it's not necessary for every post, but some examples would be like, let's say I make a post that's like, here are 3 mistakes to avoid if you're trying to enjoy dessert and still lose weight. So you would say, and I can speak on this because I've lost over 35 pounds while eating ice cream several nights a week. Or I can speak on this because I've helped 100 moms, you know, get in shape without having to give up a dessert. Or, hey, I can speak on this because I'm a certified nutrition expert with 10 years of experience. So step 3, the value, the meat and potatoes of the post, right? This is where you're delivering your core content, where you're actually giving the body of the text or the actual video, right? Key techniques. You either want to tell a story, or like that could be a personal story, a client story, or even a fictional story or a parable, or you're going to give the tips, the value, the bullets, right? The steps. Keep it succinct. All right. If you're doing value bullets, keep them to 3 to 5. Don't overdo it. And look, give away your best stuff. Give away all your best stuff for free. People will pay you for implementation, not information. Always remember that. So think of value in terms of like you're trying to break a belief, right? Or like a misconception that your ideal client has, or you're trying to evoke emotion. You're trying to get them to laugh or feel anger or shame or like just oh, that's cute, right? It's something that's emotional or being just entertaining. So I want to break down next some types of stories that you can create inside of your content. All right. So the reason stories are important, you don't always have to tell a story, but man, if you can become a good storyteller, you're going to be an excellent marketer. A story is 20 times more effective than just sheer facts at relaying information and therefore instigating action, change, or purchasing decisions. So a stupid, simple story framework could just be this. Hey, I was here doing this when this thing happened. So therefore I did, or I said, or I thought blank. And here's what happened next. Now, what does this mean for you? Or here's the lesson. Or what does this have to do? Or what did I learn? Or what's this have to do with your fitness journey? You want to connect it to the point you're trying to make, right? Super simple. Other types of stories you can tell, like your product or origin story, like why you came up with your system for getting your clients results, or why you became an online coach. And I'm not going to go through the frameworks. A lot of these are like inside of IFCA, we give templates, examples, like we go more in depth, but I'm just kind of giving you guys some quick stuff here. So you could also do like education or value or entertaining stories, just random stories, right? I told a story on my Instagram one time about how I was having a conversation with the Dick's Sporting Goods cashier, and they were asking me like, hey, do you work out, or what kind of supplements do you take? And then they were like, oh, you know, I would work out, but man, my job keeps me so busy. And I'm like, you work at Dick's Sporting Goods? What? They're like, yeah, you know, I'm already tired and also like, I don't want to get all sweaty, because the Dick's was right beside a gym. And basically I just told that story and I was like, this is the problem with America, right? Like we have insane excuses for why we can't work out. So anyways, that's a good example. Finally, you could tell vulnerable stories. All right. Vulnerable stories. I shared one recently that like how I was broke when I met Erin and how she paid all the bills while I was getting the business, like getting my business off the ground. Or one time that I didn't fit in my wedding suit because I'd gained a little bit of weight, you know, something like that. So finally, last part, CTA. This is just to direct your audience on what to do next, right? So this would be where you want to clearly state what you want them to do. Do you want them to, hey, follow my account for more of this? Do you want them to DM you a keyword to have a conversation about your coaching or something? Do you want them to apply to work with you? You just got to call it out. So some examples, DM me keyword and I'll send you this free resource or thing that I was talking about. Or, hey, when you're finally ready to stop pain point, to stop feeling uncomfortable in your clothes and finally be able to wear your bikini confidently at the pool, DM me rapid fat loss and I'll share with you details. Oh, and the best part, you're not even going to have to give up wine night with your girls, right? That's a very like value benefit driven CTA or indirect CTA. So you could just be like, hey, comment below if you're going to try this on your next leg day, or let me know if you've experienced this too, or etc. That basically wraps it up. Again, super simple posting framework, but the key here is just to get started and use a framework and model what's working, spend some time doing some research, looking at other creators, saving those posts in an album, then coming back and saying, okay, I see why that post worked. I'm gonna put my own spin on it using these frameworks I talked about. And then give yourself a posting schedule, a cadence. And if you need some help with this, we do have a free content calendar that kind of has a lot of this built out for you. There should be links to that in the show notes. If you don't see it, you can shoot me a DM on Instagram. And also shoot me a DM on Instagram if you want this slide deck with tons of examples and stuff inside of it. Just shoot me an Instagram DM that says content slides and I'll share it with you. My Instagram is JordanDugger_, JordanDugger_. All right, squad. Thank you all for listening and hanging out. And I will see you guys on the next one.